our relationship with the Quran. And our relationship with the Quran is in a bad state today. In a state like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Furqan, which is one of the names of Al-Quran, the criterion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Ayah 30, وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّ إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. Close meaning of which is, then the messenger will say, the Prophet ﷺ will say, "O my Lord, truly my people have taken this Quran as just a deserted, neglected book." Mahjur, deserted, neglected. And that is an adequate statement of how we today as Muslims interact and deal with Quran. We've deserted Quran. In most of us, Quran has no relationship to our daily life. And Ramadan is the opportunity to change that. Ramadan is the opportunity for us to re-establish our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is no way you can have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except through Quran. Islam is not a mystic religion where everybody goes in some isolation and tries to figure out their own spiritual experience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us a book for how we go about that spiritual experience. And a role model, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So what do we do about this? The sad thing now is, I was looking, when I was researching this for the khutbah, I was looking at some of the old books about Quran and Ramadan, and the mawa'id, the advice that the scholars used to give to the Muslims about how to deal with Quran in Ramadan. And I was shocked to find that some of the mawa'id was about giving people advice that they are not allowed to read the Quran more than 3 times a day. To complete the whole Quran, read it end to end more than 3 times a day, because that's too much. That's the concern of the time. Concern of the time is that people, because they're seeking the blessing of doing the khatm, reading the Quran completely, that they're trying to do that 3-4 times a day to get all the rewards. And the scholars are saying, no, don't do that, that's too much. And now I'm wondering how many of us even complete the recitation, the reading of the Quran in the whole month. And that should be our goal. So at least we will not be amongst the ones that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of judgment will be saying about them, "Oh my Lord, my nation, my people have deserted this Quran." The minimum for us as believers is to at least have gone through the whole Quran once a year. And the opportunity is this Ramadan. At least. How could we claim to be Muslims and now you can talk to some Muslim, or they're listening to somebody, big talking head, opening their mouths and mentioning something and saying it's from Quran. And we're sitting there with our eyes wide open and we don't even know whether that's from Quran or not. And we claim to be Muslims. Allah, I've heard it with my own ears, where people are quoting things from Hadith and calling them Quran. Or people are quoting things from poetry and calling them Quran. That's the ignorant state we're in. So we owe it to ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need any of this. Wallahu ghaniyun 'anil 'alamin. Allah doesn't need us. Even if all of creation would not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Hadith Qudsi, it would not diminish His glory by anything. And equally, if all of creation would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He wished, He would not add to His majesty a single thing. Subhanahu wa ta'ala an dhalika aluwan kabira. Then why is this for? It's all for us. We need to rebuild our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Quran. We need to become familiar with the Quran, so that when somebody like me stands in front of you and starts quoting from the Quran, you can stand up and say, no, that's not Quran. What are you talking about? And you don't have to memorize Quran, by the way, to know this. If you read Quran on a regular basis, wallahi, believe me, you will know, your ear will be trained. And if you hear something that's an ayah, you know it's an ayah. And if the imam who's leading the prayer makes a mistake, you'll know they've made a mistake, even if you haven't memorized the Quran. Just by being familiar with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how are we going to lead our matters of daily activity not knowing which ahkam are in Quran? And we're just going to listen to what so-and-so said and what so-and-so said. We can't. In the day of judgment, you cannot come back in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, I did so or I did not so, because somebody said so. كل نفس بما كسبت رهينة. Subhanallah. Everybody will have to fend for themselves on that day. You cannot throw the blame on anybody else. So we need to get back to this Quran. We need to read it. And more importantly, we need to understand it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Sad, كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك ليدبروا آياته وليتذكر أولو الألباب. Subhanallah. A book that we have sent down to you, a blessed one. Why? So that they may contemplate and think about its verses and its signs. وَلِيَتَذَكَّرُوا, and so that they may remember and take tadhkirah and get reminder. For whom? The ulil albab, the ones who have deep thought, people who can think and contemplate and question and wonder. And that's the purpose of this Quran. Purpose of this Quran is not just ta'abbud. Although just looking at the mushaf that is open, you get reward. Then reading the Quran, you get reward, and you get reward for every single letter. And the Prophet ﷺ was so explicit that he said, لا أقول ألف لام ميم حرف ولكن ألف حرف ولام حرف وميم حرف. The Prophet ﷺ said, I do not say that Alif Lam Mim counts as one letter, but Alif counts as one letter, Lam counts as one letter, and Mim counts as one letter. And for each one of these letters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises you one level and takes away from you one sin. Plenty opportunities to invest in Jannah. Plenty opportunities. And they're easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so fair and so merciful. So what do we do? How do we proceed from here? My request to you, my beloved brothers and sisters, and to myself, is that today, after we step out of this khutbah, that we sit down and figure out how much of Quran have we read. We still have time to catch up. And for those of us Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed to read, we need to ask the next question. How much of what we read do we understand? And the means of understanding today are so abundant that we have no hujjah, we have no excuse to say that we can't understand, because we don't have access to scholars. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it so easy for us today. You can have access to scholars via the internet. You can even watch the scholar. all the social media and stuff you see out there that's being used for evil is also being used for good. You could either watch an evil program on YouTube, or you can watch Taraweeh in Mecca live. Or even better, you can watch a program of a scholar explaining to you the ayahs that the Imam is reciting during Taraweeh. It's all our choice. And Imam Abu Bakr, may Allah bless him, has pointed that out during the Taraweeh and said that there is a YouTube program you can go before you come. Before you come, go. There is this brother, may Allah reward him, Ali Khan, who puts for every juz a quick summary of some of the key messages that we need to get out of that. Wallahi, we have no excuse. And our case in front of Allah is going to be very hard unless we take care of ourselves. And for those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed with understanding, we need to ask the next question. And the question is, how much have we implemented of what we understand? It is not enough to be reading Quran and to be reading about this deen being a deen of rahmah, of mercy, and we don't practice that mercy. We don't practice it amongst us here in the masjid, and we don't practice it with our children and our wives and husbands in our houses. That's not why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent this guidance. Guidance is to be followed, otherwise it's not guidance. If you ask somebody to give you directions of how you can get to San Francisco and you don't follow the directions, what guidance is that? And what good is that guidance to you? Guidance is to be followed. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يا فوز المستغفرين.